I've got 8 questions here. You'll ultimately pick 3 numbers, and whatever question they correspond to, that is where we'll start.
4.
I'm obsessed with looking at people's trivia pages because we usually find like the most random facts in the world about them there. So if you could add 1 fact about yourself to that page, what would it be?
Oh my god. Probably nothing.
I feel like that's a fair answer.
Yeah, like I don't want to add more about myself. I feel like the less you know about me, the better. Yeah, there's nothing really, no notable party tricks or elements of my life that people would benefit knowing about.
I'll give you a little bit of a substitute that could go there and it would be like wholesome and nice. What is something that someone else out there would label like insignificant and not important, but it's a little something that just brightens your day on a regular basis?
Sitting in a cozy dark corner while it's raining with a good book.
What is your second number?
7.
What is the best rap gift you ever received from a production?
I just wrapped this movie called The Greatest Hits, and it's about music and time travel and grief. And on wrap, I got a stack of records, of vinyls that we'd used around set that that are so treasured to my character. And so I got to take home, a really substantial stack. And that's both really sentimental and practically great.
What is your last pick?
2.
You are on the set of The Pale Blue Eye. There is a zombie outbreak. You can pick 2 co-stars to team up with to give yourself the best chance of surviving. Who do you pick and why?
Christian Bale, because I think he would be good at fighting zombies. He does loads of, he was Batman, so he's gonna be able to fight zombies. And Gillian Anderson, because I think she'd be really scrappy about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like this.
Yeah.
I kind of want this to be a movie now.
Yeah. And also I've chosen like fighters because I would just not survive any kind of zombie apocalypse. I'm someone who's gonna curl up in the fetal position and just bow out day 1.
Give yourself a little credit. What would be your greatest asset to a team of survivors in a zombie apocalypse?
Fear-mongering reality checker.
I am so excited to be doing this in person, an in-person Collider Ladies Night with Lucy Boynton, one of the stars of The Pale Blue Eye. You know how much I love your movie, but I also love a lot of the other films and projects you've been a part of. So we are gonna talk about a whole bunch of them right now. What was the movie, the performance, or personal experience you had that first made you say to yourself, I have to be an actor and nothing else?
Doing a school play when I was 10 of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And it was the first proper role I got in a school play. Previous to that, my first role in a school play was as a boulder, a literal boulder, and then a tree, and then an angel. So it was a real big promotion. We had, instead of like science teachers doubling as drama teachers, we had a real actress as our drama teacher that year. And she taught us in a way that I understand my job now of what it is and what it could be, of not just playing pretend, but really exiting yourself and your world as you understand it and trying to find otherness and someone else's experience. And I remember her talking about how you can act with your eyes, and no one had given us that patience of education and intricacy into what that can be as a really valid exercise or way to spend your time. And the idea that you can of course you read so much emotion from people's eyes, the idea that you could be in control of that, the author of that, was so fascinating to me. And also I think I really appreciated her talking to us in a adult way, in a way, giving us credit that we would understand something like that at such a young age. And that whole experience of that school play was, I guess, turned out to be pretty life-changing.
So that's really beautiful, but I'm a little hung up on this. What does it entail playing a boulder?
Great question. To play a boulder, it was curling up in a tight rock, but then I think rolling back and forth. I don't remember for what purpose, but that's when I caught the acting bug.
I mean, I can't act, but like this role sounds like it could be made for me.
Oh, honestly, it's more intricate than you would think.
Okay. One day I can dream.
Oh, the bolder days.
I love talking about the actor-agent relationship, especially when it's someone you've stuck with, and I don't think we talk about that nearly enough. What did you see in your agent early on and still see in them today that signifies to you, like, this is someone who understands what I want in the stories that I tell?
I think because she was interested in what I wanted. Even talking to a 12-year-old, she didn't try and orchestrate or prescribe a career trajectory for me, or even what type of roles I should audition for or do. And at the beginning of your career, obviously you're kind of prone to say yes to everything. You have to. And even then she gave me a sense of understanding of like, no is your greatest tool, so you don't have to do anything. So that's really informed the way that I operate now, where like I love this job so much, but it's not the be-all and end-all to me, and I feel like an author in it. I therefore feel like I can say no to it sometimes, or be more of an architect in my career path. And to have that sense of self-ownership at such a young age sets you up, I think, just as a young woman in such a powerful way. And so the older I got, the more I realized how grateful I was to her, just for those reasons as well.
I had read a quote somewhere where you were talking about how John, he encouraged you to create a backstory for that character more so than anything you had ever done before. So whether it was that particular experience or any other director you've worked with, is there a director who encouraged you to try something new that you still do to this day, even if the project that you're working on is completely different from that one?
God, that's such a great question. I think... I don't know. I think it might be John, in the way that I now take much more ownership of my characters from the get-go, and try and hone in on more of a sense of a backstory than, and also that being really like a valid thing to do. But then again, I think working with Hugh Laurie last summer, he loved those characters so much, and we really got to kind of just like live in that space unselfconsciously, and the lines were so blurred between ourselves and the characters that it was such a pleasure to live in that space and be in that environment, that I think I let myself get a little bit more lost in characters now, knowing that I know how to find my way back out. I give myself kind of permission to go further into living in their shoes a little bit.
Paying off quite well.
Yeah, thank you.
My other Sing Street follow-up. So the idea of breaking out with a film, I feel like this industry loves to say, like, this was your breakout thing. And, you know, Sing Street is usually labeled as your breakout performance. I guess many questions here. Did it feel that way to you? And whether it was Sing Street or anything, what would you say is the biggest misconception of what it means to have a breakout in Hollywood? But then also, what is something about breaking out that really felt like it gave you some momentum that you needed and valued?
I don't know. I think the biggest misconception is probably how much it impacts you personally. But then I think that's just different from person to person, because I think that's definitely been referred to as my breakout. But maybe it's just my relationship with the industry or with my career that it didn't feel different. I feel so deeply thrilled when people have seen that movie, because I'm just so proud to be a part of it as a whole. I really love it just from an outsider's perspective. But I didn't feel changed by it in terms of an industry chessboard in a way. But I think it was the first time where I felt grateful. I think the benefits of like a breakout is the implication that people haven't seen you do something like that before, so they're kind of taken aback. And I loved the idea of that being a thing. I'd never anticipated that. You don't think about those things being said about you. So the idea that I could catch people off guard with what I was doing was really exciting. And I think that's probably why I lean towards like dark projects, because I think that's always such an opportunity to do that. To
more
kind
horror.
Of, exactly.
It's been
bring
like
on more horror.
This has a horror tinge to it, but I want more like straightforward horror genre stuff.
I think because you can say so much with horror, and you have an opportunity to create such intense, powerful, interesting characters that, yeah, more horror.
Of all of the co-stars you've ever had, who would you say you were most immediately in sync with, where you have a very similar approach to the work, but then who's someone else who challenged you to adapt to what they like to do, and maybe you tried something new for the better?
I think most recently the person I felt most instantly in sync with is Will Poulter when we were doing Why Didn't They Ask Evans with Hugh. And Hugh, both of them actually. Because it wasn't so much about process as, again, just like living in that environment and feeling very free with those characters, and very quickly finding that dynamic between them. And just how much I loved that project, I think, is indicative of how comfortable I felt. And so that one is one that really stands out as a place that I was really reluctant to leave. And then someone who's been really different. I think someone like Jack Rayner in Sing Street, who, it's not that he works in a specific way that forces you to adapt to his. It's just observing him. He was so vivid in those scenes. I think he's the heart of the film, and he would just plunge into them and just go for it. And again, as like a young actor, I think I was slightly more tentative and would ease my way in with takes, and he would just be so bold in trying things, and loud and take up space and really, create such a saturated sense of that character that I remember just watching that within a scene and being so taken by him and just like in awe of his ability to do that and be that. And I think that has really informed the way that I approach work. When I've genuinely, in the last few years, when I've struggled with how to do a scene, I've been like, what would Jack do?
Looking back on all of the most challenging scenes you've ever filmed, is there any that kind of gives you that confidence in yourself now that when you're about to tackle something you don't know if you'll be able to do, you think about that scene and you can say to yourself, like, if I did that, like, I could do anything?
I think it's more a feeling. It's like, Betty Gilpin, this actress, actually wrote a book recently. You read the book? I stalked your Instagram. God,
She's
it's
incredible.
A good book. She's so good, and she speaks so specifically about the experience of being an actress. I think all actresses should read it. And she talks about sometimes finding this thing where in a scene, it all stops being acting and being pretend, and it just becomes real. And you really feel the feelings your character is supposed to feel, and you live it for a minute. And a lot of the time and I enjoy the analytical and technical side of it, but a lot of the time it's trying to create something. And then sometimes when you just get that feeling, that's when it feels true, and also you feel really capable, I think. And so it's knowing I've had those experiences and knowing that that's always possible. And I think that is also like weirdly freeing as well, because then you're not relying on like, I'm good. It's like chase the motivation, like the feeling of it all. Jumping into Pale Blue Eye, this is probably going to be a close to impossible question to answer, but how do you determine if you're hitting the right balance in terms of like recognizing the fact that Leah might be doing something bad, but she's doing it because of a reason that's out of her control. She had all this great promise, and it was essentially taken away. So what was it like trying to, make sure the audience very clearly understands that, even though it's ultimately revealed that, she has been doing something bad all along? I found it really easy to empathize with her. I found it really easy to justify her actions. I think when I kind of in discussions with Scott, and just as the understanding of the character evolved and kind of clicked in my brain, I think realizing who she was before this illness, and then who she is when she has that kind of fire ignited in her when she's with Poe, or just and she hasn't had a seizure for a while. She's someone who loves life and has this intensity about her, this hum of electricity about her that is being so dimmed by a force that she does everything to push against and is kind of succumbing to. That to realize that there is this chord of hope and possibility, that there is a way out, that of course she would take it, of course she would grab it. And then I think it's really easy to go down and dark when you can justify those things and you can understand them. And I wanted to go further with the end. I wanted her to go full horror film. Because you can understand, I was like full bloodlust. And Scott kept anchoring it of like, okay, but the empathy, we got to empathize with her. And I'm like, but blood.
Well, as a horror obsessed person, now I need to know, if he let you go full horror, like what might that have looked like?
That I think goes into a place where it's like, so I remember we talked about, and I've talked a lot about finding the crossover on the Venn diagram with her where it's prey and predator. And she's constantly playing between both. And I wanted to go full predator, where it's just when you watch animals that are predator and there's just like a stillness and like a lasering in on the prey, and it is chilling. I'd love that.
Where you guys landed is pitch perfect, but like
it was probably more appropriate.
I just want to see that. I want to see it.
That'll be a different horror film. That'll be a
fine, as long
film.
as there's more horror films in your future. I must leave you. Thank you so much for talking Pale Blue Eye and sharing some of your experience with us on Collider Ladies Night. Cannot wait to see more.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm mad I didn't say Chevalier once.
Oh my god, me too. And also I was going to say the person I've connected with is Kelvin.